The title of this presentation is My Philosophy of Instructional Design. It is my goal through this presentation to communicate my personal beliefs about instructional design, including the roles of theory, methodology, technology, and assessment in creating effective courses. Before discussing my philosophy of instructional design, I would like to ask the viewer to consider some questions about their own learning experiences. By understanding ourselves as learners, we are better able to engage in effective design processes. First, think about the ways in which you learn best. Are you a visual learner? Do you prefer working with a group or working by yourself? Have your learning experiences reflected the ways in which you prefer to learn? Effective instructional design would ensure that the answer to that question would be yes. Can you remember a time in school when you completed a particularly engaging lesson? What made this lesson so effective? Finally, do you learn the same way as the learners around you? I have found that learners are unique in their learning preferences, and no group of students is the same. I ask myself these questions in order to begin considering what I find to be important in instructional design. The purpose of this video is to communicate my goals, aspirations, and objectives as an instructional designer. By reflecting on these ideas, I can construct my philosophy of instructional design. My main goal as an instructional designer is to create courses that are accessible to all students and that follow best practices. In order to meet this goal, I must engage in ongoing professional development to understand those best practices. My aspirations as an instructional designer are to continue to improve in my course design skills. I would like to one day have an online course to accompany each of the units I teach. I believe that the main objectives of instructional design should be beneficial in meeting the goals of the designer. Therefore, my objectives as an instructional designer are to incorporate multiple learning strategies into the courses I teach, utilize technology to help students learn, and complete professional development in my field. When creating courses, there are many instructional design methods to choose from to use as the foundation of the course. The target audience of the course will determine the learning theory, design principles, and specific instructional strategies a designer uses. Instructional design theories, principles, and strategies provide the structure for any course that is designed. Sheehan and Johnson, 2012, explain that instructional design theories provide a course with direction and determine the instructional strategies that will be used throughout a course. There are many instructional design theories that may be used in course design. These theories include cognitivism, connectivism, and behaviorism. It is my personal belief that none of these theories are better than the others. However, some are more conducive to certain learning environments. For example, in my 6th grade classroom, cognitivism is the theory under which I design many of my courses because it meets the needs of my learners. However, when I design courses for adult learners, I often choose to use constructivism. Instructional design is all about knowing the audience. Just as there are many learning theories, there are also many design principles that can be used when structuring a course. These include the ADDIE model, ASSURE model, and Merrill's principles of instruction. In my experience, I prefer the ADDIE model because it's straightforward in providing a template for course design. Again, I do not believe that any model is better than the others. The choice depends on the designer's preferences, learning theories used, and audience needs. Finally, I believe the instructional strategies chosen by an instructional designer should reflect the learning theory chosen for the course. When I've designed courses for my students using the cognitivist theory, I was not able to rely heavily on activities that required memorization. Rather, I had to implement strategies that incorporated cognitivist ideas, meaning I used pre-tests to activate prior knowledge, interactive games that provided immediate feedback, and collaborative activities. Overall, my belief regarding theories, principles, and strategies is to have a general knowledge of many of them in order to choose the one that best fits the needs of the audience at that time. Technology plays an important role in instructional design. Our students desire to use technology, and instructional designers must utilize that desire when creating courses. Technology is a powerful tool to be used by instructional designers. However, it is not my belief that technology is the only way to teach or for students to learn. In my 6th grade classroom, not all students have access to technology at home. When I design courses, I must consider this fact and limit some of my technology use. I'm not unable to be an instructional designer because of limited technology, but I do have to adjust my designs to fit a blended learning environment. Rather, technology is a learning tool that can be used to enhance the learning experience for students. McLaughlin Jr., 2021, explains that technology and Web 2.0 tools are effective in engaging and motivating students in the learning process. I've used technology to share video demonstrations, play interactive games with students, engage in meaningful discussions, and host live meetings. The way in which I utilize technology depends on the learning theory and instructional design model I've chosen for that course. For example, in a math course I designed on unit rates, I created a Kahoot game for students to complete in order to provide them with feedback on their progress. It is my belief that technology is a tool to be utilized by instructional designers, but instructional designers do not have to rely on technology for every aspect of their designs. Without assessment, it is impossible for the instructional designer to determine if a course has been effective. Assessments must align with the goals of the course. In the courses I have created, I have implemented both formative and summative assessments. Houston and Johnson explain that both types of assessments should be used in education, as they work together to provide educators with an overview of how their students have learned and grown throughout a course. I believe that assessment is one of the key components of instructional design. Without assessment, it is not possible for a designer to determine the successfulness of the students. I believe that both formative and summative assessment should be included in a course's design, no matter what theory or methodology was used. In the courses I've designed, I've utilized multiple types of formative assessment. I've created interactive quizzes, games, created quizzes in Articulate Rise, and used Canvas for discussion boards. All these assessments were completed by my students during the course, and it provided me with an opportunity to help students as it was needed. For summative assessments, I've used projects, choice boards, and final tests in my course design. By varying the types of assessments used, my students were able to demonstrate knowledge in ways that appealed to them as learners, and I was able to determine areas of strength and growth. As an instructional designer and educator, continued professional growth is a priority. Through continued growth, it can be ensured that best practices are being followed to create the most effective courses for my students. Earlier in this presentation, I stated that my main goal as an instructional designer was to create courses that were accessible to all students by following best practices. I stated that one way to accomplish this goal was to engage in ongoing professional development. Therefore, in order to continue my professional growth, I believe I must continue completing professional development work. Gunderson explains that engaging in professional development increases one's value in a profession and allows for reflection on personal strengths and weaknesses. Without professional development, I would remain stationary as an instructional designer, which would prevent my students from continuing to grow as learners. Ideas for professional development are to follow instructional design blogs and join groups for designers on social media. I will also attend technology professional development provided by my district in order to remain up to date on new technology. Another method I will use to grow professionally is to include student surveys in the courses I design. By gathering frequent feedback on my designs, I will be able to make changes and updates to make my courses more effective. My professional growth is directly related to my students' growth. When I know the best way to design courses for them, they are best able to learn. In summary, I have provided what I believe my philosophy of instructional design is at this time. My philosophy of instructional design states, learners are unique individuals and no set of students is the same. It is my role as an instructional designer to determine the most effective learning theory and design methodology to meet the needs of the students I have at that time. This theory and methodology should then be used in conjunction with trending technology to create engaging, meaningful courses for my students in which they all have an opportunity to think critically, collaborate, and succeed. I recognize the differences that students bring to the classroom and recognize that my role as an instructional designer is always evolving. By being willing to apply instructional design best practices that align with the needs of my students, I can create courses that are effective. The following references were used in the creation of this video. Thank you for viewing.